Good morning. Welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. We're on day 325, and I'm continuing the story of buried treasure. Now, you might want to remember that father had passed. He told them there was buried treasure on the property, and well, kids, taking it seriously, had decided they'd better go out there and find it. He said their joy was going to be hinged to finding that treasure. So they'd started digging at one corner of the property. Their uncle had come by, and he went back home and brought a bunch of seeds for them to plant on the ground that they were digging up. They looked at the seeds, they didn't even know what half of them were. So he climbed through the fence that was there, and he showed them how to level out the ground and make rows. And now, all of them had done this a little bit with their father and their mother. But remember, they had really not been interested in becoming farmers. And so they had never really engaged in that work. Well, Rose planted, and he dropped the seeds in, showed them how to cover it up. And all work had basically stopped at that point. It was later in the afternoon. And at the end of it all, they just all went into the main house and cooked up a meal together. Youngest sister had continued to grow the gardens and take care of things, so they had harvested things straight from the gardens of their father. It was a beautiful meal. They laughed a lot. First time they'd really smiled and laughed for quite some time. And before you know it, evening had clearly set in. With all their merrymaking, well, the kids decided they would just spend the night there. And, well, Uncle even spent the night as well. And in the morning, they got up and had a beautiful meal together before everybody headed on their way, because it was a Monday and time to begin work again. Things that they did to make the money that they needed to make in order to buy the things they needed to buy in order to keep themselves well fed and, with all the things that you need for life. Remember, they'd seen their father had just spent way too much time working, taking care of all those needs. Whereas they thought, we'll just work, make money, and then we can take care of our needs by paying for it. And so that's what they did. They went back to that. But in their minds, they were already thinking about that next weekend when they would get together again and start digging on the property. The days passed. Friday evening came, and before you know it, everybody had reconverged at the main house. With some cups of tea and coffee downed, they went out to the tool shed and picked up their shovels and pickaxes and started on their way out to that corner near the crossroads to begin digging again for the buried treasure. Well, they'd let Uncle know that they were going to keep working the land. And so later that day, he'd come by that Saturday and checked in on their work and told them the next day he'd come with some more seeds for them to plant. And pretty much the same thing happened as before. He came in the late afternoon. They planted everything. Before you know it, they're there at the house, sharing stories and laughing and talking and sharing a beautiful meal with each other. Same thing happened again. Things were just so beautiful that they ended up spending the night all together, and off they went on that early Monday morning to spend another week of working. Now I have to tell you that their father had been quite a man. He'd investigated everything he could to learn about how to live in harmony, really, with the laws of nature, with the natural world, with the wildlife around him. Not to be at odds with it, but to be in sweet harmony. So even the house that he built had been, well, the design before he put it all together, he had studied ancient forms of architecture to make sure that as best he could bring in features into the house that was not just about merely surviving in, but living in an abundant and beautiful way. He tried to share what he'd learned with his kids, but, they weren't really interested. He thought, that's just Dad. He's all full of his, crazy ideas about things. It's clear we need to choose another path. But it was true that whenever they gathered in that house, there was such a sense of communion, such a sense of joy that they felt. But that night they commented on it and pondered, what were those things that Dad used to talk about? We'll stop the stories there, right there. Give them time to remember what were those things that made that house so amazing. Okay. Have a good rest of your day or evening. Thanks for joining.